All right, we're going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. I apologize for the delay of starting here, but this is our April 10th work session for our budget. So maybe we'll go ahead and have a roll call.
Morris. Cole. Here. Edwards. Here. Leak.
Here.
Leak.
Here.
Passanello.
Present.
Shannon.
Here.
All right, great. Just for some housekeeping, looks like we needed to add one or two items to this agenda.
We do. We need to add the council's action on referring the rezoning for the townhouses on the fairgrounds property to the Planning Commission for consideration.
Okay, we'll put that right up front as item A1, I guess. And is there a second one?
I don't think so.
No.
I think that was it.
All right.
We had anticipated a joint public hearing with the council at the May 7, I think, regular council meeting.
Okay.
But that's not something I think you need an action on at this point.
Right.
Your main thing right now is just to refer it so we can get it to the Planning Commission.
Right. You want to say that in maybe such a like a motion that someone could.
Yeah, I guess the motion would read that the town council refers the rezoning for the townhouses at Crossroads Villages to the Planning Commission for consideration.
Okay.
That's it, isn't it, Emily?
Yeah. So if we do a so moved, and then, all right. So discussion, just so everybody knows what we're voting on. So Emily, you want to just give it in a nutshell?
Sure. So when we have rezoning applications come up, to follow the right process, we have to have the town council refer it to the planning commission so that they can start looking at the application and they can set a public hearing. So that's what we've just done, is refer the application to the next board.
And so this application just came in last week.
Yeah, this application came in about 2 weeks ago. They've submitted the GDP, the General Development Plan, along with several special use applications and the rezoning application. So all of that's being looked at. They've also turned in their traffic impact analysis, so that's being reviewed, and then we'll have a staff report drawn up by the time we put the public notices out. So.
All right.
Mayor, do we need a rezoning application number to attach to this meeting?
It would be 2018-004.
Mayor, I move as a friendly amendment to amend adding the rezoning application 2018-004 to the motion.
Is that a great? Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this?
One question.
Sure.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll wait. No, you go ahead.
I just, again, the comment, again, you know, the concerns, and you'll be hearing this all along, that you've already heard from me, the concerns of the townhouses to ensure that there is a proper buffer between that and Sherwood Forest. I'm not opposed to it. I just want that stated up front. Thank you.
So we'll make that, Ms. Shelley, for the record, to put that so that way it can be passed along to the Planning Commission for his record comments.
My question is more a procedural question. Since we're in work session, is this a directive or is this a vote? And is it proper to vote during work session?
Yeah, that's been.
I questioned that, and it is. I questioned that with the town attorney, and yes, you can.
And do we know, I mean, because to be honest, this is the first time I think we voted directly in the work session. I could be wrong, but I just want to make sure we're good before we do it.
We,
I had the same concerns, and I questioned him directly about it. And you're allowed to.
And how did he explain it? Could you
It's a
remember?
called meeting. The entire council is here. Everyone's aware of it.
We have a quorum.
You have a
We have
quorum.
quorum.
So yeah,
Okay.
you can amend your agenda to include whatever you'd like.
and take action on any business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You need to vote to add it to the agenda first, though.
Okay. What do you mean? I think, did I do it? There was no objection?
Yeah, I thought you did with no objection. We'd like to add
Okay.
it.
That's fine.
I could be mistaken.
And-
We just want to do it.
And just for the record, is there any objection of adding this? Okay, great. So there's no objection and still in discussion. Any further discussion on our motion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Yes.
Edwards.
Yes.
Leak.
Yes.
Casanello.
Aye.
Shannon.
Great, okay. Our next item on our agenda is our Farmers Market Day membership increase.
Okay. On last week's Events Committee meeting, we had a member of the farmers market come. He voiced his displeasure with the fact that we had raised the fees and that they would have to pay for participating in Haymarket Day. Our reasoning behind that was because our town businesses have to pay as well, and everybody needs to be treated equally. And they are getting a discount by the fact that we are only charging them what the town businesses pay. So I told him I would bring it to council and discuss it, but we have checked with other farmers markets for the fees and everything, and we are not out of bounds. So, any discussion about that?
So the question is, how much are they paying now, and how much will they pay? Is it per Saturday, or is it a fee for the entire period? And then how much will they pay for Haymarket Day?
Let me, from what I recall, the fee, they are $125 is what they're paid for the entire farmers market
For
season.
the entire season?
Yeah, and prior to this, that also covered Haymarket Day, as I understand it.
To add to that, the fee, the 125, the only thing they will exclude is Haymarket Day. They still have the ability to participate on the remaining events, which is Health and Fitness, Earth Day, and the Christmas celebration.
Right, so the 125 for the entire season gets them everything except Haymarket Day.
Exactly.
That's a pretty good deal.
And it breaks down to about $2.28 for staff. If you looked at it at a weekly basis.
And they are paying tax also, right? If they sell food or prepared meals or something? They do not, okay. So they got an even bigger break, okay.
And Vice Mayor, you asked my question, is the amount per day, which was $3, which even if the weather's bad and they have to double up and they only come half the year, it's still only $6 in income that they need to generate. Okay. So I guess if we could go around the, maybe we should adopt the, in thinking this through, maybe we should adopt the new fee schedule. Would probably be.
The new fee schedule here, this is just some recommended changes for the fee schedule, mainly just little housekeeping things, so. Right, right.
I think,
The new, okay.
yeah, since we said we would get back to them after the council met, so I guess maybe we can get a consensus that if all in agreement with this fee schedule, that they will pass this out or let the vendors know. Is there anybody objecting to the fee schedule, I guess would be better? Changing it, yeah, other than what's presented for their new fee schedule. So if no objection, we'll continue, or we'll take the staff's recommendation to the new fee schedule to adopt. Sure.
I believe the only question was that Tom just wanted to know if he could get a discount. If the vendors that participated last year were able to get some kind of discount on either Haymarket Day or the farmer's market itself. Yes.
Denise is here if there are any other questions. I've got your back there.
It's like they wanted to bring to the council that option and wanted to see what the council's thoughts of that. So maybe we'll go right around through the dais. We'll start with you, Vice Mayor.
Oh, about
A reduction for these people that participated last year to get some kind of reduction for this year's fee schedule. I think it was quoted as saying like to soften the blow of paying a one-time reduction.
maybe you can.
The representative from the farmers market that came to the meeting last week to the events committee, he was asking that if the council would consider a one-time fee reduction of $50 to participate in Haymarket Day, and then cutting the fee in half for the farmers market to, I believe that was $75 for that. It was cutting it in half.
For the
Councilman
entire
Edwards, can you look at
year?
your notes?
When would the new fee take effect? Taking effect on that?
It has already taken effect.
Yeah, we've actually already collected.
He wants to go down to $100.
I'm sorry.
For the year, $100.
$100 for the year and $50 for Haymarket Day, a one-time concession,
I mean, just for this year?
just for this
And
year.
then he'll be fine with it next year?
No.
I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
That's what he had asked at the meeting. That's what he had asked for,
Okay, well, he can ask.
Presented.
yes.
Well, what's the question? Do I agree?
Yeah, do you agree or disagree, or consider that or not? Yes or no?
I think we've been very generous over the years, and I think we're okay with the raising the fee slightly. It doesn't seem to be a lot of money. I could be wrong, but.
It equates to $3.28 per
28
Saturday.
Yeah, I mean,
And prior, I'm sorry,
and no other taxes associated with them
No.
being here. Okay, I mean, so there's kind of a cross kind of relationship between us and them. I mean, they bring more people in, but we allow them at a nice rate. So I think it's okay raising it slightly and charging for Haymarket Day like everybody else.
Councilman Cole?
I'd say no special one time. Let's just go
Okay.
ahead and institute the
Okay.
new fee.
I agree with Vice Mayor.
No one-time reduction.
Concur with that.
This is one of the only fees that's not on the schedule, right? I mean, everything, this is pretty comprehensive. That's no place to put this. These are just, okay. Okay, I think we should put a title up on top of that maybe, so we have it. Thanks.
All right, our next item is, as we passed over from the council to this work session, is part-time, full-time positions. As such, there's a handout, I think, in here that, and I'll turn it over to Vice Mayor to take over the town manager side, because I think that's what you were looking for. Okay.
Actually, the only question I had was, for this council or next council, are we going to go with a full-time town manager? And of course, I said, Jerry, you're doing a heck of a job. It's not personal.
I don't take it personally.
But I think we ought to consider that, and if not this council, perhaps the next one. So the issue being, there's no, from what I understood from the initial budget meeting, there's no additional funding in the line item for a full-time manager. Is that correct? Okay. So we would have to determine, one, are we going to go forward with a new manager, which I think makes a lot of sense, because the mayor is the mayor and shouldn't be the interim manager for a long term as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a good stopgap, perhaps, but not long term, because he's got other duties. And so that was my question, and I'll throw it open to everybody else.
Okay, so we have a budget impact that obviously we would need to look at, but let's just go, my first thing is to go to a source, and I'll ask our manager, business manager, of how do you feel? We've seen full-time, we've seen part-time, and based on your being here now 2 times in a row, do you feel that this is a full-time manager position, or with our way that we kind of structured our town clerk office manager, and with our new staffing that we did, just want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, well, let me start by saying it's a council decision, obviously. It's what you want in terms of your town manager and how you want to handle that situation. I can tell you from my experience here and what I've experienced, I guess I've been here six months now. It doesn't seem like it, but I have. You've got a very strong staff with the clerk's position now, including an office manager's position. That takes up some of what the manager was doing before. You've got a very strong financial position with Roberto. And you've got a full-time planner, and Emily is kind of morphs into more than just planning. So it takes up a lot of that slack. The notion of the mayor being the interim manager, I understand what you're saying there. I think you've got a very strong mayor here, so that's probably going to be the case regardless if you have a full-time manager or a part-time manager. So some managers handle that different than the others. To me, I'm here part-time, and I've been doing this for a long time, so I don't see it as a problem for me. And I really couldn't speak to, down the road with someone else. But
so maybe because of your tenure or experience here, that you're able to do it part-time, whereas if we had someone brand new, right out of thing, that might be more
the
of
old
a
saying,
full-time.
some people use axes, some people use chainsaws to address problems. So I think I'm able to do it part-time because of my experience. I don't have to research a lot of things, whereas a newer manager or a less experienced manager would. But I tell you, building the responsibilities in your staff gives you a lot more depth in the organization, with a strong, and a lot of towns have a very strong clerk and no manager. You guys did here for years. You didn't have a full-time manager for years here. So with that, and then with the abilities that Roberto has, and then with Emily and her willingness to, pick up with a lot of odds and ends that typically a manager might be handling. From where I am right now, I think a part-time manager, whether it's me or whoever. But I guess the critical thing would be it's more about the person, I guess, that you're filling the position with. So.
Okay. Well, let's hear from the other councilman. Councilman Cole?
I think something worthy to look at, because we're not quite sure. It's very difficult to hire on a part-time basis. You're in a unique situation, and we're very fortunate for that. Mm-hmm. But it would be difficult to hire somebody new part-time. I would be comfortable targeting possibly that maybe sometime during the next year, if they had to go to a full-time position, they would be able to identify funding for that. Knowing that it would not start immediately at the new budget year, you won't need that cushion as the year goes on. So I think what we could do is we could just identify a place where that money could come from if necessary. I don't think we necessarily have to budget it in, you know what I'm saying? Because we don't have that situation. And I think that if, the town, I do think we have a strong town staff, and if the current town manager believes that we don't need a full-time manager right now, we shouldn't necessarily budget for it. But plan for the worst, look for it, hold it, then you'll see throughout the year whether you need that money or not.
Councilman Lee?
Yes, sir. Vice Mayor, was there a particular line item that you thought about reducing or allocating the funds for? Did you have anything in mind on how to come up with the difference for the? Not at this point. Okay, I didn't. I'm open for the conversation. I think part of the discussion would be with Jerry to see how long Jerry's plans to stay with us, and I don't think it's the appropriate time or place to put him on the spot now. But I think that's a discussion that needs to be had with the current business manager for him running the daily operations with us, because it may be something that we need to be looking 12 months, 18 months down the road. I'm open for the discussion of it. As of right now, I think Jerry's doing a phenomenal job. I think everything's running smoothly, but that would be my biggest concern is if our current business manager was looking to depart us and go elsewhere.
A couple things. I think that when the previous town manager was hired, I was so open to paying that kind of salary in a full-time person because we had always had a part-time planner. And then when she came on, we hired Emily as our full-time planner, and she, I mean, even though she's freshly off her master's, she has just like hit it out of the park. So I felt like the learning curve was going to be a lot bigger for her, and it's shown that it's small. And even though she might not have all the answers right off the bat, she finds them quickly, and she's very good with the businesses and the applicants and stuff like that. And I think that's taken a lot off the plate of the business manager. Not that he couldn't do it, but I think that now that we have this full-time position as a planner, I think that has loosened it up. If it's the worry of people that the mayor is the acting town manager, where does it, is it in the charter we have to have a town manager?
That's correct, yeah. And a lot of our resolutions and things like that, for all practicalities, we know Jerry is here as a business.
Correct. So why couldn't we check with Martin and see how we can?
It's more it's more a VRS thing for me.
No, I understand that.
No, but I mean the fact that the title, because if you don't have an acting manager, then that places me more in the role as a manager, and VRS is going to say that you're just playing around with the titles, and so.
But where does it say that we have to have a town manager?
I don't think it does in your charter. Matter of fact, I think the charter calls it a business manager, if I'm not mistaken.
So we may hire a business manager.
Yeah.
And as we know, we didn't have a town manager until
Gene.
in 2000,
Mhm.
whatever it was, 6,
So I guess that's my.
the mayor was the town manager and the mayor.
Yeah.
So that would be my suggestion, is to see if we can redefine it, whatever.
First of all, I think this was worth looking at, so I applaud the Vice Mayor for bringing this up. Hopefully soon I will not have to say I'm the rookie on this council, but I've lived by the old adage, if it ain't broke, make it better. But this time, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I believe, in my opinion, the team that Jerry has built here with everyone, along with the support of the council, is top-notch. Someday Jerry's going to ride off into the sunset, hopefully years from now. But I think with everything that he's done and having the entire staff here that we have, I think we are cooking with gas. I am not opposed to leaving it just the way it is, but I like what Councilman Cole said, was that if Jerry all of a sudden becomes president somewhere down the line or leaves us or whatever, I think we have to be ready to make that adjustment if the need is there. So that's my feeling.
Yeah, and I will also just mention while we're on the subject that I would like to cut the hours back some, and because I do have some other things going on. As you all know, I'm on the town council over in Luray, and I'm up for re-election over there this year, so.
Running for mayor, I understand.
No,
Just
no.
clarifying,
But
sorry.
just happy to be in the council member, but, so, I mean, my plan is to reduce the hours and as much as I can, and pass on more of the responsibilities to the individual staff members, which at the end of the day, built a strong staff for you guys. If you have a manager and the manager does leave, you've got some depth, and I think that's important.
Yeah, we didn't have that before.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yep. Okay. Vice Mayor, follow up?
I agree about the title, because that's part of it, because we've been criticized before about the mayor being an interim manager. We have, a couple of times, right?
Challenge, too.
Yeah, and the attorney, right. But the bigger issue for me is if you go down, who becomes the interim manager? So we have to do something about the title. And if Jerry can be the town manager at part-time, you can't change. All right, but
It's not
then
the charter,
if...
it's my VRS
Okay, I'm
requirement.
sorry.
Yeah.
Check that. Business manager.
Yeah.
Because that's what it says in the charter, then we don't need a town manager. We don't need an interim town manager. We just need a business manager who will direct the staff, whoever's here. So then, my follow-up, go ahead, you want to answer?
No, you go ahead, Joe.
I mean, just to kind of, it's more of a housekeeping thing, I think, than anything else, so that people understand, and you work full-time, and you're busy, so it's important that the business manager be seen as the person, the go-to person, I think, in town, for whatever.
True. It's a housekeeping thing for the council, and it's a situation where, yes, you're right. It could be the business manager only, a part-time business manager, without the interim town manager, if not, in my situation, the requirements that VRS has. VRS says I cannot fill a prior covered position. Your town manager was a covered position under the Virginia retirement system, so I cannot fill that position. If you do away with the position and give it to me, then if it quacks like a town manager and walks like a town manager, it's probably a town manager, and that's the way VRS is going to look at it. As long as I've got that buffer that, no, we have an interim town manager, and that's vested with the mayor, that affords me. Now, that's my situation. Now, you could do it with someone else who's not under the requirements that VRS has. And again, I'm fine if you guys want to look at that. But I couldn't, if he's not the interim town manager, I wouldn't feel comfortable filling the position any longer than I have, because I'm afraid I'd jeopardize my retirement benefits.
Well, that's the last thing
Yeah, it's the last thing I
That's
want
the
to
last
do.
thing we want to do is jeopardize your
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
That's
And
not the intent.
I had this discussion with VRS before I came back this time. So, I mean,
So really what you're saying, status quo. And
for me, I mean,
for you.
But there are other options.
So how
and
long are you going to be here?
I don't have any plans to stay for years, and I don't have any plans to leave. So I'm flexible. The only thing is, as long as I have the flexibility with the schedule that I have, I'm fine with doing it. And so long as I can maybe cut the hours back a little more, I'm fine with doing it, because I do have some other responsibilities that I have to meet. So.
Well, I'll state publicly that
Yeah.
as long as you want to be here, I'm fine with that.
Well, I appreciate that, but on the other hand, if you guys want to, if you want to look at something else, I'm happy to help you with that too.
Well, my only concern is something does change.
Yeah.
And then we need to be prepared for that.
Which things have changed in the middle of the year for staffing before, and we've, readjusted budgets and things like that. So it's not, and if we had to go to a full-time town manager or business manager, the money is not horrendously great, $23,000. or $25,000. So I think the next council, I don't want to saddle them with a problem, but I think they could handle it.
It's 55,000.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Anyway. Would you stop? Here, talk to the mic. So anyway, we've had to change in the middle of the year before. I don't anticipate that happening, and you really don't know anyway.
You don't.
So I'm happy to keep it the way it is.
And with that in mind, if there's any housekeeping that we might need to do, maybe on Joe's point of changing things to, as we reflect that, I can think some of our things that point to a town manager, maybe we can now just do housekeeping on our end to say business manager, for whatever we have that we can change, obviously. We could have to look at that case by case.
We need to look at that case by case.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. I think, any other discussion on this matter? All right. All right, our next item was the business communication. So we looked at our head discussion of, the discussion of making a full-time or part-time position. Wait a minute. Roberta, help me out here.
So what you're looking at is a scenario of what the difference is for full-time, if this business communication development position would be full-time as opposed to part-time. For the part-time, I just went with 64 hours, which will be below the 40 hours to be considered. The rates stay the same. The only thing is that you would notice as a part-time, VRS health benefits are not offered as a part-time position. The top line, which is a full-time position, actually offers VRS. We offer VRS and the health insurance. The difference between that is that going to a part-time, making this position part-time would actually save the town $25,699 with 51 cents.
Okay. So the discussion is whether or not we would consider this a part-time or full-time position. And so I'll take this around the dais to see what we think. Maybe we'll start at the other end. Mr. Shannon, we'll pass you down a mic, or can you maybe pass that?
Thank you. Are you asking what my recommendation is?
Just what's your thoughts?
To remain as is.
Okay.
Status
All right.
quo.
Councilwoman Edwards.
I say remain as is. I mean, it's easier to go the other way and cut it down if we find that the position doesn't require full-time. Then there's extra money in the budget. It's not like we have to fund something. So I say leave it as is.
Okay. Councilman Lee.
Can this position be executed at a part-time role? Would be, and I don't know if us here. I mean, that would be my take. Is it a position that requires a full time? I know that there are, when it comes to the events take a good amount of time to do, and then at the same time we value our businesses and we want to have that communication and level of direction with all of our businesses as well. So my only question would be: is it something that can be executed at a part-time position, or is it required to be a full-time?
Okay. Councilman Cole?
I think, looking since I've lived here since 2002, back then we didn't really talk to the businesses all that much. I mean, it was very tough, and the mayor would usually be the main liaison to the businesses, and I think this is a full-time position, especially if we get big development in the fairgrounds. There's going to be more. I think we ought to leave it.
Oh, double mic. Okay, no, bring it this way. And I'll pass it back. Okay, so if I understand what we're trying to do here is we're trying to figure out budgeting for next year.
Correct.
Okay. Really, to Councilman Leake's point, we really have to know what we're doing with that position if we were going to cut it back. So that hasn't been done as far as I know. So if that were to happen, I mean, that would certainly be something that would warrant discussion or realignment or whatever the case may be. I think I've been clear about this position. I think it's well worth it. I think there's a lot of opportunities there. So I wouldn't change the budget. Now, if the next council wants to go in and make some adjustments to that, that's their, I guess that's their right and privilege.
All right. Looks like we have a consensus there to leave this as is. All right, going to our next item is our budget review. So my thought on that was I sent out this morning. I loved it the way that we did, was it last year, where we, I think we painstakingly went through every single line item, either in the Finance Committee or our last budget work session, to understand which line item represents things. In that, with this one, if we could go around the dais to see any changes that we would like to implement with the suggestion of either increasing or decreasing, and then if there's a suggestion of where we could actually take that or where they would like that to come from, that suggestion would be noted as well. And if we kind of go around the dice, maybe we can get a consensus once the presenter gives their thing to go around, just like we did last year. Everybody in agreement with that? And it'll basically be a yay or nay. Once, and not unless there's some other discussion that you're not ready to make your decision, and you want further clarification from that person that, hey, what were you really thinking about on this, or some diving back down into it, and then we can at least get a consensus of the council and then move forward with that change. And then, Roberto, you got your things on there. And Shelley, if you could maybe, for record keeping, to be able to say yay or nay, so that way we have at least an accurate record of up or down for the changes. So I'll take this to whoever would like to start. If they have their suggestions. I did put out mine, but I'll wait till last to put mine through there. Sure, absolutely.
Put a little bit more context on that. My only suggestion was, if you have an idea of where you can cut or add, that's great. But I would like to see staff, particularly if we're going to make some suggestions, if we think revenue is going to be less, let them take a stab at where they might want to cut.
Absolutely.
And so I'm not sure if everybody's really that familiar with the budget to understand adjustments on the expense side. Maybe they are. I don't know. I don't think I am, even though I've been on the Finance Committee. So I would suggest perhaps that they go back and then bring it back to us again, like we did before. That's just my thought.
What we could do is we could ask for their referral. In other words, as we're going through this, we'll ask the manager and treasurer or what impacts or their suggestions or recommendations are, because they got us to this point. They know what the numbers, how they plugged them into this point. So if there is that question, we go back to them and see if we can get an answer. I'm really hoping that we can go through all the items on here and our objective today to have something, barring something weird going wrong, but we could at least either agree or disagree, but at least agree on this is what we collectively have agreed on. Okay. So who would like to start?
Mayor, I'll start.
Okay.
I have not necessarily in regards to a line adjustment, but a clarification. Looking under rental, first page, rental, revenue, use of money, suite 206. Is that suite filled at the moment? I'm just noting the name tied with that suite. I did not think that they were still renting from us.
Yep.
They're not.
Okay.
The suite's empty at this juncture.
Okay.
But I've shown it twice, and
We're expecting to.
seem to have some interest in it.
Okay.
So that projected revenue for that, would be
Higher
for,
rate than
right, would that be for a whole year at this coming budget, or would that be a rate that,
I think that this is for, it depends on how much of the space they take.
so that would be a minimum?
Yeah, that's a minimum, if they just take the suites, the office suites. You know, we were showing it as the separate office suites and then also the large open space as well.
Okay.
It would be more than that if they're taking the entire space.
Okay. So a projected amount, maybe we can lose the name then for the
Yeah, for the budget.
budget.
Yeah.
Are there any other suites that we have open on here that are not filled?
That space is the only one at this time, I think, that's not filled. Yeah, yeah.
Then the other question is, and I apologize if this was already brought up, do we have any projected revenue from Crossroads Village proposed within this budget?
We do not, because timeline-wise, we probably won't be seeing those revenues until 2020, 2021.
I spoke to the real estate agent with Crossroads Village, and they're looking to deliver pad sites, the first two pad sites, looking this year, looking around October, November, depending on their timing with rezoning and site plan, and they're looking for the remaining retail pad sites to be up and going roughly around April, May. Now, obviously, things always change with construction and all. Not saying that we need to add that into the budget, but just from when I spoke to him, yes, 2 days ago.
Yeah, when we worked on this budget at the time, that really was, we didn't know if it was going to happen or two. So I did not want to throw those numbers in there.
No.
But like you said, it could change, and if anything, it would be for a positive.
Exactly.
So
More of an informational than a questioning there. Mayor, no further at this time.
I would like to say that I am against equalizing the tax rate. I think we've been very generous over the past several years with that, and I understand that, there might be a few residents that are upset with that, and I understand. I pay my taxes too. However, we've gotten into quite a bind with our infrastructure in town, with the sidewalks and the street lights and things of that nature. And if we continue to equalize this tax rate, we're never going to get out of this. And we really need to maintain what the residents ask for the vision of the town. The sidewalks need work, the street lights need work, and I think we can keep it the same, but I don't want to reduce it so everyone's tax bill is the same. And I would also, I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but I would like to take some money from the reserves and put it into the budget for the blight ordinance, because I feel like we really need to move forward on a couple of these properties, that the historic properties that the owners are committing demolition by neglect. And if we don't do some work on these properties, we're going to lose them. And I feel like if we do some of these things to button up the properties, that these owners are going to understand that we're serious. Eventually, we're going to get the money back, but I'm in favor of that.
Okay, just to clarify, so we've got tax equalization and the blight adding, that would be
Bless you.
no to the tax equalization, and blight would be a yes.
Yes.
Okay. Was there any other
Nope.
items that you, okay, sorry. So,
I just want to say that I asked my questions, Roberto answered them,
okay,
so I'm good with the other line items.
all right, okay.
Mayor,
yeah, Councilman Edwards reached out to me once we initially sent out from the last town council meeting. Mayor had asked me about bringing up the scenario of a tax equalization. I sent it to everyone out there, an email. Councilman Edwards reached out to me, just wanted to get some more explanation on how it came about. Explained to her that after that meeting, the mayor had requested me to bring up that scenario, and that's how we came about that. And she did contact me via email to asking questions concerning that.
And just for clarification, Councilman Morris not in favor of equalizing. He actually might still make it to the meeting here, but I told him I would pass along his message there for equalization. Who's next? Councilman Cole?
I think this is a good budget. I like the conservative look. I understand the fairgrounds could be possible, but that's nothing against realtors, but they're always optimistic. And so I don't think we need to include those monies yet. I understand the whole practice of the equalizing the tax rate and having a zero impact to being a town resident, but you really don't have a zero impact to being a town resident. And we have equalized tax rates before, and we have neglected some things because of that. So I don't think it's a burdensome, your home has gone up in value, and so your added tax from that is not a tremendous thing. If houses had leaped in value by $100,000, $150,000 in a year, then I would really want to look at that and say, okay, that's a huge impact, but they haven't appreciated that much. And changing the tax rate, even though you would be equalizing, I think people interpret that possibly wrong. So in this case, there's minimal impact, but the revenue that's generated from the increase in property values really helps in that public works area. And I think we're going to be surprised at how fast we go through that public works line, just on necessary things we have to do. So in that case, I think the budget's good. The way I have no other questions about any of their line items. I just wanted to put in my vote for keeping the tax rate the way it is.
I'd wanted to go last to make sure I understood what I was recommending, but I agree basically with Councilman Cole and Council Lady Edwards on this. Not in favor of equalizing the budget.
Well, I had an opportunity to look at the budget today, really spend some time going over it. So if everybody would indulge me, well, I'll take it from the top if that's okay. All right, from the top. All right, so I don't think it would be any surprise that I am for equalization. I think we should make that an effort if possible. We have to remember that last year we raised taxes approximately 18% for town residents, and we still have that revenue coming in this year as well. So we essentially have more money than we did the year before from town residents. I think in the past we've had this discussion about communicating with them as to what their value is of living in this town. So I think somehow if we're going to not do the equalization, then we have to do a better job of communicating exactly what they're getting for their increase. So that's a suggestion. Okay, I'd like to just go through these the other local taxes. Probably did some of the stuff that you did, Roberto, in doing trending. I do have a concern about a couple of them. First of all, we're not going to know what that business license tax is until we get to the end of the month, I believe.
That is correct.
Okay. So that's somewhat of a hole. We're not really sure where that's going to end up because it has dropped from previous years. We did budget $209,000, but I'm concerned that that could be a little bit less than what we thought.
As of today, we are at 35% of that. They probably might come in, you're right on that. But even going back, researching past trends, there really didn't seem a way of how they were, coming up with the budget amounts as well. But being here a year, I'm trying to be more realistic to that number.
Right.
So as you can see as well too, we have lowered it in the next proposed budget as well.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that might be a little optimistic, but I guess we'll know better once the receipts come in the end of the month. We'll know better what, May?
Correct,
where we
correct.
are.
This year,
And-
I actually updated as well the business list to be 162 businesses that actually had licensed and renewed last year, and that's who got letters sent out. So right now, we're waiting about 162 businesses to come in. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we can have that discussion, I guess, at the next meeting when we have it. The other concern is the cigarette tax, which continues to drop, and we all recognize that. We might have been a little bit high in our projection last year, and I see you dropped it for this year. If my trending calculation was correct, I'm looking at, say, maybe 130, 135K for the year. So we're still a little bit less, so that's something we ought to consider, maybe reducing a little bit. Consumer utility tax, I did a calculation that's close. I think you're dead, pretty much spot on for your proposed budget, if that holds. Meals tax, no issue there. I think the projection is spot on. Sales receipts, not really sure, but I guess the trend is up a little bit for this year, so I guess the 155 holds. So I guess for me, I'm concerned about the business and the cigarette. And everything else there looks okay. Inspection fees, we talked about that last time. The revenue use of money, this earnings on the VACO VML investment, really kind of weird that that's a negative when we had a banner year in 2017 in the market. So I think we ought to really consider, Jerry, you would have more
Yeah,
info.
keep in mind, though, that VML VACO, under the Public Finance Act, they're not invested in markets, and they're not invested in stock markets. They can't invest public money in those types of things. So they're more in investments that are more guaranteed, and not to lose a principal. So that's that's why the lower rates.
Right, but I mean, a lot of those vehicles are also tied to the market themselves.
They are, but just because the stock market is booming doesn't mean that
I found
public investment accounts
Yeah.
like these are going to boom.
I found that out last week.
Yeah.
So, but I guess the issue here is, I mean, I see the $10,000. That I think might be a little bit high, because if you look at the interest on bank deposits, that seems to be trending down as we draw on the reserves too. So we might want to look at that 10,000 and see if we can do something a little bit more realistic or closer to where it might be at the end of this year. My calculation, if I'm correct, with no touching of the reserves, I did, I think it's around $8,000, $8,400 for the bank deposits, not including the first one. I'm not sure what that 404 is, but I was just looking at the big ticket there. Okay?
Okay.
Just,
No, yeah.
So
I just note that at the end of February, it's $5,500, and interest rates on the types of accounts that this money is included in are probably headed up.
So to make sure that we've got everything that Joe's asking for here, or not asking, but bringing to our attention, is, so on the one line item for the cigarette, from 148, to feel that maybe we can go down to 135, that would be a realistic number,
might be, yeah.
and then the bank deposit to an 8,000 thing. So instead of just going around the room, is there any objection to putting those calculations in there from the council? If there's any objections?
I would just like to, I don't know if this is the time or place for Joe to walk us through his calculations and how he came to that number, or if I should meet with him on the side.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's just basically trend analysis. You look at the previous years, you do a percentage change. You also look at the year that you're in. You look at the averages for that. You do the calculation out to 12 months.
So no objections, Roberta, we're going to massage those numbers there to.
Yes, we could do that.
Okay. And then we'll keep an open item for that business license tax, because that's going to be curious to see how that comes in. Of course, I had a tough year last year, so I only paid the minimum, so I'm happy.
I think there's some projections too. Weren't there projections for QBE building or something like that?
That was
You
built in.
You over budget, yeah. And that's the reason why we're running behind
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, last year, the TM at the time had projected many items considering that QBE project to go online.
Would it be possible to get the actuals for the rental? I mean, I know we aggregated it last year. Could we get the actuals versus the budget for each one, line item, where there's the holes?
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay, that'd be great. Let's see. Yep, next page. Well, actually, on the rental side, so I see, town hall rental, I guess the policy is we're not going to rent the town hall out going forward. I mean, it's a small number. But is there any thought about doing anything with the museum and the deck and what have you? I don't know if that really builds in a lot of money for the budget for our discussion, but I just, as I'm going through it, I thought.
So would you think a fair number, $1,000?
I don't know. I mean, we'd have to have a plan, and how would we do it, and all of that kind of stuff. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, you gotta look at that real carefully.
Yeah. So, let's see. Communication tax. I'm not sure what affects this. If you go down to 3180, the comms tax, that seems to be trending slightly down. I'm not sure if the 120 is a little optimistic. I did my calculation, and I got to between 115 and 117. I mean, every little bit, I guess, counts. So I'm thinking might be better to be 3 to 5K less on that, unless there's a good argument for that number.
We could take a look at that if you want. Yeah, we could.
All right, thank you. Oh, that was the comms tax. Page 2. Hey, Chief, could you just talk to that DMV Transportation Safety Grant? Because I know we spoke about it last time, but I forgot, to be honest.
What would you like to know about it?
Well, I mean, we're jumping up pretty good, up to 13,000, and
That's because we were awarded more funds this year.
this year.
In this budget coming up, the grants that start in October.
Okay, how much was that? How much more did we get? Do you remember?
I don't have
All
the
right,
figures
well,
on how
don't worry
much
about
more
it
we
now.
got over
Yeah.
last
We
year.
got the documentation. We're all
Yes,
set.
sir. And I actually don't think that we got that much more over last year. What you're seeing now is it included in my budget, where before it was not.
So there's a corresponding expenditure on the other side. I
No,
guess.
so what was happening was it wasn't being captured on the other side. So I would have to order equipment that was being paid for once we submitted the invoices, and it was being carried as an overage on my equipment budget. When the money came back in, it wasn't being captured on the revenue side. And even now, you see the expenses are in my budget, but coming back to zero is not being captured in my budget. So I think that's why there's not much increase from last year. It's just you're seeing it now because Jerry and Roberto are correcting the problems of not showing it, so that I don't have an overage.
Right, got it. All right, that's right. I remember that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. The revenue from federal government, number 33, or what, 32, 33, down at the bottom. So that 208, just to clarify for my edification, that's for that streetscape up to the bridge.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, is that, do you remember? Is that a match? Is that a match? Or is that a billable? Do we bill directly, or do we have to pay for it and then get
I believe you have to pay for it and you're reimbursed for it.
Okay.
And I think, if I recall, it is a 20% match.
20%. So, in essence, we have to have the funding available for the cash flow for that. So that's something we have to consider if we're thinking about taking out a reserve.
Correct.
Okay, just just want to make that point. All right, I get that. And then, of course, I'll go on record. You know me, I'm not crazy about pulling reserve unless, of course, we're going to do it for capital improvements. My concern is, and I talked to Jerry and Roberto today, I think it would be very helpful for us to understand, I know for me to understand, the operating revenue versus the operating expense, to kind of strip out a little bit of the capital side, so we see, are we making our budget for the based on the revenue we're receiving?
We did that, Joe, if you want to,
Okay,
we pulled that out for you.
thank you.
No, you go ahead.
So we pulled out the capital, the CIP stuff that you discussed this morning. If we were just dealing with just the expenses and the revenues that are coming in, it means that our revenues would be $2,202,000 with 44, versus an expenditure, if we pulled out as well on the other side, $2,123,093.
Okay.
So to answer your question, the operating, we're not pulling from the reserves.
I like to
when it
see in
comes
the
to
black. That's a good thing. All right. And do we have a copy of that here?
No, you don't.
We don't, but I could make it available too.
Okay, yeah, because I'd like to take a look at that. Go ahead, David.
I was going to say, we do have this one, because I think that's real important too, because we get mixed up, or been accused in the past that we're using our reserves to fund our operating, which is not the case. It's definitely not the case. As you can see, I think we all agreed that by the analysis that were done, that between having in reserve 15 to 30%, because of our small budget, that we should be on the more higher side. Even though we could go to 15 for cash flow, it should be at least 30. But besides that 30, we have that another $450,000 that we've never done anything. We built this savings account up, obviously, and haven't spent it. So you take those two combined numbers, and you're probably up to, did we get a percentage on that, Jerry?
If you look up at the screen, you can.
Yeah,
So what you're looking, sorry, Mayor,
Sure.
what you're looking at now on the screen is basically our current breakdown. This is our 420,498 is actually our 30% reserves.
That number equals 30?
Wait a minute. I think you got to go back and look at that, because I thought it was of the entire budget. I could be wrong.
We backed the escrow out. You
escrow's
really
down
can't
here.
consider the escrow, because
Right,
the escrow
okay.
is not, it's not a part of the budget, but you can't touch it for anything. That's actual
That's
bond,
restricted.
those are bonds
Yeah,
that have been
that's-
posted on projects and things like that, that have been escrowed. So we backed that out, because it's not operational nor capital.
Right, okay. All right, I'll take a look at it.
So you add the two numbers, and we're probably close to, what, 60% in our reserves?
Yes,
So we did-
total, absent the, your policy, if you consider what we're holding in reserves according to your policy, plus the additional unrestricted reserves, yeah, you're probably at 60%.
Above 50.
50 or whatever.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Total
Total
unrestricted.
unrestricted.
If you didn't have a reserve policy,
I just want to go on record about the 30% and where that came from. I think we all remember when we're talking about a loan, you don't want to go below 30% for the funding.
we're not suggesting you do.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Right. Okay.
And then on this graph, it also shows that we pulled out the operational funds, which is basically the general and the sweep fund. So your total unrestricted, as of right now, would be $548,584 when it comes to the unrestricted funds.
Okay. Back.
I'm sorry, I'm a little hard-headed here. But what I'll do is I'll speak with you in the next couple of days, because I always thought that 30% was a lot higher. And in past calculations, it was closer to 600,000 to 700,000. Maybe it's based on a different number. So let me take a look at it, and I'll ask you in the next couple of days.
I think it's because we pulled the escrow out. I think if you put the escrow back in, you would be up. And
If we pull the escrow back in, that total funds would be actually 1,745,000, which closer to that number. But we pulled it out just because it is escrow. We can't touch it.
Right, exactly, and that's going to go somewhere too, right?
It'll be returned to the
Right.
developer that.
So it's not really our money.
It's not our money.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, going down, no, I'll let you finish yours.
Okay. All right. I was looking forward to this all day today. No, I'm not really. Okay, so I think we're talking about taking funds for the CIP. I think we have to determine what's in the CIP. And that should be part of this package. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. So I think it would be instructive to have exactly what that money is going towards, okay? Just a list of what's in the CIP.
It is.
Yeah. Maybe I missed it.
The capital projects, they're only the park. We put 75,000 in for the park, carried it under the CIP. We put 208, I think, for the pedestrian plan, carried that under the CIP. And then we put 200,000 towards the building, the building renovation, carried that under CIP. Everything was funded. The building and is funded from reserves. The park, the 75,000 for the park is actually funded from operational funds. We didn't pull that out of the reserves to fund that 75,000. So that's what we outlined as the major capital programs here.
I think it would be helpful to have a separate little document. I think in years past we had a separate document for CIP, what was in the capital program.
Well, I think maybe from the planning commission, they usually do they're chartered to, instructed to come up with a CIP wish list that then they pass on. I don't think we've ever gotten that from the.
Yeah, that's more of an unconstrained CIP. But when we're talking about the budget for next year, it would be constrained, right? It's not to be identified, what the money's going towards. That would just be my suggestion there. And that's it on the revenue side for now.
So is there any changes, or just to make sure Shelley's up on her things here, there's no changes per se?
Well, communication tax maybe dropped out a little bit, just getting some clarification on the other issues, and I'll sit down and talk to Roberto on this reserve policy, because I'm a little confused about that, the total. Okay. Got a few? I got a few.
It's like that My Pillow commercial. I knew you would.
Okay. I noticed you had something, Mayor, about salaries.
Yes.
So do you want to wait for that? Because I'm not, the way, okay. So the trending right now is about 16K for this year. And we're not going to be spending all of it, I don't think, the 32. But we're going to keep it at 32, and I'm wondering if maybe that could be a place where we could cut a little bit. So I know that was in your email, so.
So you want me to dovetail on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think we did worst case scenario. Now realizing that this Village Crossroads is, Crossroads Village, right? Crossroads Village is about ready to take up. I can definitely foresee us capping out the 3 meetings as we come into special meetings, joint public meetings, as this project comes up. I think Roberto put that as a worst case scenario for next budget year, that we put in at least the worst case of 3 meetings to budget that. Some considerations maybe for the committees where we could maybe reduce that from 7 to 5. I think that was probably one of your suggestions even last year, to budget only 5 and then the worst case scenario. But that's my thought, so I'll let you back over to you.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, just based on the calcs, I thought you could drop it, but if you're projecting a lot more meetings, then yeah, you don't want to hem you guys in for next year, so. The VRS retirement, that's a big jump to 37,000. I'm looking at roughly 28K for this year. I mean, I don't know, maybe my calculation is wrong, but do you think that's a little high? Could that be a place where we might be able to cut?
That is actually, prior, you guys, I believe, were all hourly employees. Staff was hourly. This is running the projection of current staff, which is salary-based. So that is actually how I projected those numbers.
And you're comfortable with that number?
I am comfortable with that number.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, it's a small item, but unemployment insurance and might be a place we might be able to cut a little bit. Just a thought.
Is that a factor thing where you take the salaries and it's a set number?
Yes, it's a formula. Mhm.
So you ran the formula on the current employees and that's what?
Exactly, exactly. As a matter of fact, that's why on the line on the health insurance, you will notice I was a more realistic. When we did the budget last year, was considering a full plan for family, and this is working with the current staff.
Excellent, great. So that brings up a question I wanted to ask before when we were talking about the business comms person. If that job does go to a part-time, can they buy in insurance? Would we allow them to do that?
At the renewal, as of right now, the town hasn't offered for a part-time employee benefits.
Right.
That is something I can discuss with them, and it would be something that council would have to.
All right, so that's a
agree on.
council decision. Okay, all right. Sorry to go backwards there, but it just popped in my head. Let's see. There's no number in that cigarette tax administration for this year, so I wasn't sure where that's going to end up. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's.
Actually, before you move forward.
Yep. Yeah.
Quick question on general property.
Wait a minute.
And liability insurance. So fixing police cars comes out of that line, or is there a separate insurance
That's actually just to pay for the actual coverage.
Oh, okay, so do we have insurance on our cars?
Yes, yes.
we do.
That's actually on the PD's budget. You could see the breakdowns on the PD side.
Okay.
Yes.
Just checking.
And then anything to fix it comes out of maintenance, the maintenance budget.
This budget is for the building, the park, the coverage, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir, and the insurance was the same for 2006 or 2017.
Yeah, guys kicking out windows, stuff like that.
So the deductible comes out of maintenance?
That's where I've been taking it from.
Take the hit.
Take the hit. Like this last one is graphics were one part of our insurance and car door was another part of the insurance. And they started to tell me that, but I quickly shut that down. But it ended up it's a higher deductible for graphics and things you add to the car than it is for things that come with the car. So it became to fix the graphic was $335. It's $1,500 deductible to do it. So we took the hit in the maintenance budget.
You all set?
Yeah.
Okay. So I looked at the mileage, meals, and convention, education. That might be someplace later where we might consider if we have to make any cuts. So. Yeah, we did. I know. No. This is for town. This is
For
for
town.
town employees.
Yeah,
We put it up in above for new council members. Up on 11,100. This is under the town admin.
yes, and that's just simply budget, just because staff is relatively new. We do want to take the opportunity to better service the town by taking these convention stuff. So that's mainly. But I agree with you. With time, hopefully, we'll be able to bring that down.
It's like you know, I had a conversation with the chief about training, and training is so critical for these guys. And, you know, that's one area that normally gets cut first, right? You know, that's the easy place to cut, but it can really have long-term effects on you. So I get it. I'm just making a note of it for the record. I have to agree with Chris about the legal stuff. I'm wondering if we can get that down even more. Based on the numbers for this year, and I think you did it, but I did it independently, and I got about $45K for the end of the year. Right? Didn't you? I think you were in the spreadsheet.
I actually, yeah, I have this spreadsheet up. This is up to April 1st. I believe I placed that for you guys.
Right. Perfect.
Exactly, April 1st. It covers up to March.
Right. Got it. Okay. So, I mean, it's up to council, but I would recommend maybe we make that. We could get it down to 50K with maybe another 10 for risk, emergency, whatever. Just a suggestion, maybe at 60. Unless we're worried about all of the development and what have you.
With the
and
develop
views.
happening, that's one of the main thoughts.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I heard that.
But I think you have a point. I think, you know, if it were around 65, I mean, that's still, I don't know. I mean, that may be an area where we have to offset some of the other changes you wanted
Right.
from the revenue.
Right.
So rather than taking it from Public Works.
Right. Just a thought.
So a suggestion on that, we're currently at 80. I think we're going to come in year to date maybe.
About 45, 47.
No, 55. This is year to date. We still have 3 more.
You got
Three more months. 3 months.
Oh, okay.
So we're 1 month behind in billing.
All right, well then, yeah.
You got a bill out there.
Yeah, so we're at least close to 60, I would think. Maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was figuring that that number was 8 months worth, but it's not. The 28,641. That was really, they finally caught up with their billing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so this is 9 months at almost 48,000.
Yeah, okay. That's a big difference. Okay. All right.
So we leave it alone?
So, you know, well, right now we're at 80, so I just, it's like one of those things I'm worried about with all the fair, the crossroads and,
I mean, just looking at that chart, you can see back in 2016, when it comes to planning, you guys spent almost about 36.5. And I know that with this development coming, we just want to make sure we do it right.
Okay.
so no change on that.
For the public safety computer internet website, can we just explain for a note? I think I know what that's for, but maybe put a little bit of a note beside that. The 66% increase on the computers, internet website.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah, that was the MD.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. Can we just put a note there?
The comments.
Yeah, good comment. So that'll explain to anybody looking at it. That's why that number jumped. I did have somebody ask me, and so why are we spending so much on uniforms and police supplies? So I know we talked about it at the last meeting. We rebranded last year, and so maybe you can do it for the record and explain to why that number is so much higher.
I can be quite frank with you, because you haven't done it in multiple years, and we've got a vast deficit on equipment and used, borrowed, begged, and stolen stuff that we have to have, and I'm not stolen, and we're up. So this is the third department that I've taken over that has been in a crisis of equipment. You haven't either the prior administrations, whether it be the police administration or the council, hasn't spent the money or given the money to do so. And so the smaller departments, they beg and borrow from the bigger departments, and they have a deficit of equipment that they absolutely need. And then the equipment they do have is old and dilapidated. So my first 2 years are always rebuilding years on equipment, and this department is no different. We have had just the bare bones things that we've needed because they haven't been spent. I have not increased this at all. When I got here, this budget was the same for uniforms and equipment. And usually every place I've been, it continues to stay the same every year. This is what you need for uniforms and equipment, and that line item never changes. This line item has not changed. What you've seen from me is better management of that money. And that's what I've done. So again, this hadn't changed from the year before me and probably the year before that. But this is not an increase. And there are lots of things that we need right now that we still don't have. And I'm saying $10,000 for a year for a police department is nothing. A signboard costs $12,000. I mean, the things that we looked at for the two speed signs that we're looking at extra was $3,000 a piece. I mean, if I hire one officer, it's about $1,500 to $2,000 just to equip him. So let's say that Officer Gregory left tomorrow, I would have to spend a bunch of money doing someone else, equipping them. So this is really not a lot of money.
Did you have to say Gregory's?
Because he's sitting right there. Well, he may be, snatched up by the Secret Service now after yesterday. But that's why this hasn't increased at all, and I would say it's relatively small, and it's evidenced by the fact that I've gone over this past year on just things I need. Yes, sir.
I will say good answer.
Yes, sir.
But I think it was important to have it for the record.
Yes, sir.
So I thank you for that.
All right.
On the landscaping, that number is pretty much, we're good. We're not going to see any increase on that. I'm sorry, 43,100. We're pretty good on that.
Fixed pricing for 3 years. When we entered with the landscape with Premier, I think, the only thing that we've been pulling is for, looks like trees being taken down because of this wind stuff and,
Right.
Fixed
I mean,
price.
that's emergency stuff. So the fixed price is good for what, another year, another fiscal year?
It's a 3-year contract.
3-year contract.
So this year and the next year will be
Correct.
good? Yes. Okay, so that's good.
We
Okay.
also got planters, looks like our plantings that are actually included in our contract, so we're talking to them. I think y'all are talking to them tomorrow. Maybe? About the contract.
Oh, good, okay. Maybe we can get some folks, like the Women's Club or some other groups to,
Yeah, they're got plans for going out tomorrow, I think, with some plantings.
excellent. Glad to hear it.
Assembly's got a smile. She's-
Okay, so are we comfortable, I'm just going to jump to 94-106, the Town Center Plan. So I think it would be very helpful, and Jerry, I don't know if you got the cost estimates for that, the engineering estimates or anything, but relative to what this is for, and I understand it's for the wrapping, I think some documentation would be nice to have for that.
Yes.
Right.
We've discussed this with the project design and with the architect. We should be able to have some bids for you, hopefully in a couple of weeks on it, because we're just looking at the building now, and we segregated that out, and we'll get some estimates based on just that. And the architect had said they would have some drawings to me in 2 weeks to work from. So. Oh, no, it wasn't an option.
In the discussions with them also, we were able to submit the plans that we currently have out to bid for the renovations of the roof and then the wrapping windows. So, and in conjunction, they're going to rework the different areas that might affect that. But today, we're good with putting those out to bid, which was really refreshing. So we can really, we're not stopping. Yeah, we're a new roof, new siding. Meanwhile, the other areas are going to be reworked. That was the $30,000 that they needed to finish the plans, but we can currently use our ones.
Okay, I'll just go on record. I'm a little concerned again about pulling from reserves, but I understand it. It'd be good to have the details and see that when it's available, so we get a better feel for it, because I'm wondering if that's going to be enough to do the building. But we'll see. We'll see when the bids come back.
The good placeholder is when the intent was to be able to use, because we found that if we don't have an in-line item, we're into the budget year.
Right.
We're now having to pull and then
Yeah.
do public hearings.
Right.
There's a placeholder.
I get that. I'm just, one of the things that I'm concerned about is we've done a lot and pulled a lot from reserve over the last 3-4 years. And I just want to make sure that doesn't go towards operating. It shouldn't. And that's a pet peeve of mine, I guess. Anyway, I think Roberto has done an excellent job. I think the staff has done an excellent job putting it together, and I look forward to some of the adjustments. And, we'll go through it again. And what are we, a year and 10 months into this term? We're all here, a year and 10 months? Okay. That's it. That's all I have, David.
Couple items. Also, I did want to just a clarification. You had 18% increase.
I thought it was 18. Well, maybe that was my personal.
That might, yeah, look for the record.
Yeah, I'll double check it, but I think definitely for me it was 18%.
Roberto, that's probably a quick number to put maybe before the end of the meeting. You can let them know how much we actually did increase from last year to this year. Because you're right, because in history, last year, Green Hill Crossing actually went down whatever it was, 4-6%, which didn't understand. I called them and why did we go down? And we had Sherwood Forest, and they had gone up at the other end of the dice here. They went up. Now, this year, they've only made a moderate, a small change up, and Green Hill has gone up. So the county is, balances these numbers that, to even equalize it, you're not really we can't equalize everybody's individual unit, unfortunately. So we're only equalizing a total number that is about, 20-some thousand and
23, 26,000, I think.
Right,
Yeah.
right. With the overall budget, I realize it's not apples for apples, but real estate over the overall budget, you're talking, 0.5% or 1% or whatever it actually equals. So going back, on this other one, there's no other changes that we need to look at for, Shelley, you were all clear with what we're, as far as the council's changes of which were changes in everyone's opinions of yay or nay. Of course, you can always replay the video there. Yep. Okay.
I mean, we can. Just for clarification of the staff, what we have to start thinking about publication deadlines and what have you. What do you envision as a next step? Would you like us to bring back with these?
Well,
these are fairly minor changes.
Right. So I envision it as you plug these changes in, there's really one, typically, not unless we've messed with that line item, there's only one line item that we're pulling from, and that's the maintenance. So as we've made these adjustments, you adjust out of the maintenance, positive or negatively. I'd have to look at.
That's the other question. Is that you're not going to equalize because we'll
let's
have
go
to
down. Let's go down the dice just for that. That was one of my things of just whether or not to equalize or no equalize for the record.
Equalize.
Remain the same, no 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 equal.
Yeah, you go ahead.
So it looks like we've at least got this down pat. Let's go to our fee schedule for, is there any things? Sure.
Sure, budget. Can I just, the other thing is the park. I noticed we've got the 75,000 back in for this year, fiscal year 19. It would be nice to kind of get a sense of what we might do there. Some ideas as to what we can put in, like a dog run or playground or something, even though, maybe some repairs to the building. That's not going to carry you much, but that could be another location where we can pull from, not all of it, but some of it.
Absolutely. When we all sat around and looked at this park, I mean, it's something that we haven't, the focus has been more on the town center as we went through all these engineering plans and stuff like that. But we're happy to announce that we have a meeting with Dominion Energy on Friday, that for the submission that I put into their website to get a grant money, get the grant money for a pavilion. So they're now actually coming to the table for us on Friday to meet with us about the park plans and what they could possibly donate to the park. Hoping maybe some type of pavilion is probably the big ticket item. Sir, okay.
Councilman Passanal was talking about pulling from that $75,000, which directly goes against what he said about CIP projects and using that money for other things, and I don't agree with that. At the last meeting, he stated that he was very disappointed the park hasn't moved forward, so we put money aside, and now there's a discussion to move it someplace else. And I think the town center property, the people don't mind paying their taxes when there's something that they can see getting done. And these projects need to move forward. We need to leave the money in the projects. We've taxed people for years. We have extra money over and above what we need to have in reserves. We need to use that money and get these projects done.
Well, I guess that does sound like a bit of a contradiction on my part, but I still think we can do something there. I don't know what that something is. If you can pull money from Dominion for a pavilion, that's a big win, and that would reduce the need for the 75. I would love to spend the entire 75 and do something really nice for the communities that don't have a playground, that don't have any place to have fun, and to keep the kids occupied, whatever it is. The suggestion was this might be a place where you could draw upon some funds, but of course that would be up to council to have that discussion and make that determination. But we need to have some kind of a thought plan as to what we're going to do there based on what we have.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Can we go to,
Are you moving off budget now?
yes.
Just one other point of clarification for Roberto and I.
Sure.
What is it you would like to see, Joe, that demonstrates that we're not using reserves for operations? I mean, it's pretty clear in the budget here.
I'd like to go through it. I think you've done that.
Okay.
The question is, before we lean towards the reserves, we have to know what we're spending it on. I mean, I understand the concept of a placeholder, but it has implications on our budget. Maybe small, but it still has an implication. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Not exactly. What I was asking was, the $200,000 for the building was just that. It's a placeholder. It's a pass through for the reserves, which would fund this to the point that council wanted it to. Maybe I'm misunderstanding you, but I think your concern is that you believe that some of the operational expenses are being funded from reserves. And my question is, what can Roberto and I give you to show you that that's not the case?
I think you've done that.
Okay.
I think you have. I want to take a look at it. But I think it's important that we show it to the public because that's been some of the accusations. And if we're in the black, it's important to show that. Right.
There, as Councilman Cole just said, we've always been in the black too. So to rebuttal that, we have these master projects and we spend that money. For example, when we spent the $400,000 to pull out of the police department and redo the police department, that came from capital. That was, but it's put into our budget that say, wait a minute, they're using the reserves to do operating. Well, no, that's not the case. I'm not aware of 1 year that we actually did that, where we were drawing from reserve just to do our operating. I'm not aware if it is. Show me, tell me what year it was, and where in the accounting books. I think where it gets kind of fuzzy is only when we have these capital improvement projects incorporated into the budget, and we do take it from there. It was 1 year that we actually gave a refund because, when we have all this extra money, why did you basically overcharge the residents, And we've gone through two things where that was one where a refund was given to the residents when really technically we shouldn't have. We should have spent the money for improving our streets and the way the buildings look. And then number two, I vetoed that at the last minute for the old council, and that did not pass. So we definitely have to put in for this infrastructure that we're expected to, especially having a walking town. You want to walk it and make it look like at least some of the other neighboring towns that are definitely putting the money into that. So with that said,
Thank you.
am I going too long? Did my little buzzer go off? No, I was looking at you, John. Oh, okay. So next thing is our fee schedule. Any suggestions or recommendations other than what was presented? Okay. Anybody that wants to speak on it? Otherwise, we'll keep it as is. No, it's not a voting. It's just, yeah.
So, under the recommended fees, the grade boxes are the only things that have been changed. Skip down to site plan and subdivision, if you will. The only changes made there were to add in the engineering consultant review fee. A lot of these were missing, so we weren't recouping the fees that Katie charges us. So, right, so most of this is just cleaning it up so that we can get all of our pass-throughs taken care of, because we're getting to the point where we couldn't turn around and bill for Katie's time. If you go back up to certificate of appropriateness, the only major change is that the first one, the new construction demolition, we changed to 150 for residential, 200 for non-residential. And that was just dealing with this most recent demolition. It was a lot of staff time. Took about 2 or 3 meetings with the ARB. So we just increased it about $50 residential and then the commercial. And then at the very top, a typical zoning permit when somebody comes in is $50 for commercial, $25 for residential. So looking at the certificate of appropriateness, what I did here, the 2 larger boxes, I changed it so that all zoning permits and certificate of appropriatenesses that come in are a $50 commercial fee or a $25 residential fee. If it's something as simple as changing a roof and it's an administrative review fee, those would only be $25 for commercial or residential. But those are really the only changes that have been made.
I guess this is both for you and the chief. I noticed that we have vendors walking around trying to sell you a new roof, and you get after these guys and you tell them they have to get a permit. Is that reflected in here? This is just land use, though. And what is that permit fee?
So I guess that permit fee is technically, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, it falls under an itinerant merchant. However, I believe if you look in our ordinance that the certain peddlers and vendors like that, the ordinance doesn't back up that they need a permit.
So we have nothing to enforce it, yeah.
So we need to fix the ordinance to back that up.
The door-to-door
and
solicitation.
We do.
I'd like to address that anyway. If we're doing this because of the money solicitors we get all the time right here at the corner, sheets that we run off, once a month, if not more, it needs to be addressed so we can put some teeth in enforcing something, because they're not listening, just like the roofer contractors or booksellers are not listening as well. So I'd like to address that in the future, for sure.
So, yep, so fees, any further thought on that? Otherwise, we're going to move forward. Councilman Leak.
Under site plan, other required plats and deeds.
Oh.
300 minus.
It's not minus, I apologize. It's supposed to be a backslash. I have to work on that. So if you look at subdivision boundary line adjustment, and then it says other required plats and deeds, that's 425 plus TAR, but there's somewhere else on here that other deeds are 300 plus TAR. So I need to work with, I believe, Jerry and Roberto and figure that out. So it should be a backslash.
Okay. Anything else down there? Can't see all the way, so. All right. I think we're there. So we make these adjustments? Okay. Sure. So Roberto.
Okay. I believe after this meeting, the adjustments that we're looking to be making are on the business license tax. I have a review. You want to review it, but probably adjust it depending on what we're at coming in, as well as the cigarette tax, to review that, maybe adjust that a bit, as well as the revenues on the use of money for bank deposits. Top items, not, which one? Oh, so we are not going to equalize?
Correct.
Okay. So we're not going to equalize the tax, so get that in there.
Cigarette, you went down to 135, and then the bank deposits down to 8K.
Bank deposits at 8, okay. Would you actually like to see more of an actual projection on the tenants' revenues? On the communication tax, bringing it from 120 maybe down to 115, 117. I believe also on the health insurance, I guess council would have to discuss over the part-time position still getting benefits, or health insurance.
I think the question was, could part-time individuals purchase the benefits?
Purchase.
Not the town pay for it.
Buy into it. My apologies. The convention education, for looking into this being one of the line items in the future to be decreased, but not for this one.
Right.
On legal services, no change. Add the description on the internet website computer for PD as MD unit, I believe. Is that it, Chief? On this one?
Yes.
Okay. Don't have any other notes. Eventually, seeing documentation with bids for the roof and the wrap. Is that correct?
not part of the budget.
I'm not part of the
That
budget,
was a
but just a comment, just to add that to the others.
Well, it should support, yes, it should support the purchase.
Did I miss anything?
I think you hit them all. Okay, any closing comments?
Actually,
Sure.
I believe there was a conversation over blight.
Yes, thank you very
Funding
much.
that,
Blight.
is that something that we
Yeah,
are?
so let's talk about that. Yeah, I apologize. That was one of my list of things. So my thought or idea was, once we did the blight ordinance, is how do we fund it? And speaking to the chief, the previous town that he was at, there were certain areas that the town would look at and budget each year to be able to take action. My thought was that we take some of this reserve money that we're clearly way over our 30%, to maybe take 50,000 of that to put that in a blight line item that we could fund it from the capital, and then use it as necessary to enforce our blight ordinance that we already have in effect. So, for example, if there was a house that's nearby and the roof is blown off and the owner's not going to fix it, that we could be able to spend $10,000, have the vendor go up, fix the roof, bill them back, put the lien on it, garnish the checking account or whatever it takes to get the payment back to the town. So by having the 50,000, it would just a number that to be able to work off of. I don't think the focus is on mowing yards or stuff like that, whereas it's more of these gross negligent of some of these buildings that need to be looked at. So with that, that's my suggestion, to add that blight item. We'll go down through the dais here.
I think we need to have a longer discussion about what exactly we are prepared to do before we start adding a line item number on that. So I don't know where we're going to get if we take, it's not capital improvement money. We can't do that. If we take it from reserves, again, how far are we going to go? And we do need to look at, if we can't stabilize a building or improve it, how much it's going to cost to take it down. And I can tell you right now, $50K, $100K to take a building down is probably not unreasonable. So, yeah, I think we need to have a longer policy discussion on that.
Vice Mayor, I don't want to cut in front of you. Did you? Are you sure? I don't mind going third.
I think John makes a good point on this. And for me, priority is the blight versus the building. That would be my opinion. I think it would do a lot to remove the blight. The point is, what exactly are we doing? Are we enforcing our ordinance, or are we going to have the discussion, the MOU we talked about a couple meetings ago, the other option? I don't know what happened to that, whether we were going to get into that kind of a discussion. But certainly, we'd have to make some notation if we are going to use that money for the blight, that so that the public understands and we understand, for whatever, that we're going to get that money back. We have to make some kind of accounting for that. Well, we have to make an accounting for that and notation that we understand that, that we're going to get that money back. So for me, I see the wisdom of a blight line item. It has to be done the right way. And what policy are we enforcing? Are we enforcing, our ordinance, or are we going to do something with the county, like we talked about a couple of meetings ago? So I agree with John. I think we have to have a little bit more of a discussion on that issue.
I agree with Vice Mayor and Councilman Cole. It's 50,000. I don't know how far that'll get us, and at the same time, maybe it's something that we take piece by piece, and realizing that you're not going to be able to do everything at once, but at the same time, your ROI on that, it could be 5 years down the road, 10 years, 20 years. If we put a tax lien on there, yes, we can try to go garnish, but how successful will that be? And then you're waiting until they actually go and sell the property, and then when they do sell the property, yes, we'll be first in line. there for that, but it's risky in my opinion. I think it's up for discussion. I think maybe we talk about that and talk about which properties we're actually considering or thinking about using this on, so we have a game plan for it. But I think having a game plan and a clear direction on what our intentions are would be key before allocating that $50,000 even as a placeholder.
So just last month, we had to approve a demolition permit because someone basically demolished their building by neglect. We also have the firehouse over here. Mr. Zizio is proceeding forward with that, hoping that it'll fall down if he just lets it sit there. And then we have the Colonel's house over here, or whatever we call it now. If we lose those two properties, that is a huge part of our historic significance as far as buildings go. And I think that's a big mistake. Why did we even put in the blight ordinance if we're not going to give it any teeth? I mean, there's no point to it. People know that we're not going to come and do the work, so they're just going to sit there and let it go. If we actually step up and say, okay, we've notified you, now we're going to button up. I'm not saying we're going to renovate the entire house. I'm saying we're going to seal it up so there's no more the holes in the side, the holes in the roof, things like that. But I think it's an important part, or we're going to lose all of these buildings. And I thought that's what we discussed when we had the blight ordinance. I mean, we've already had that discussion to institute the blight ordinance. Now we have to carry it out.
If we're enforcing existing policy or ordinance, then we need to have the funds to back it up. You know, I wasn't a part of that discussion, I guess, back when it was discussed, but I've had questions about the house over here, the old firehouse, and a couple questions from citizens. And I think I talked to, I don't remember who it was, somebody about the old house right around here. I know that the chief and his team, our police officers, are young students are going in there, sneaking in there, trying to take pictures and stuff like that. We need to do something. So if we're enforcing an existing ordinance, let's do it. Let's enforce it. And if it's the $50,000 is what it's going to take, let's do it.
I want to go over to the chief, just kind of explain what you did in the small town and how the council worked on that.
In Halifax, the town manager would work with the mayor and pick a number of properties that they wanted to address that year. And then they would come to a consensus of how much, if the town were to have to pay for every one of those repairs, it would cost, and then they would budget for that year. And at some point, the homeowner would pay for some of the things, and then other times the town would go in and demolish a building or fix a step or a ramp or something like that at their own cost, and then put a lien on the building. But that would be, you would determine what it is, you would budget for the money, and then the clerk or Emily would type up the ordinance. They would give it to me, and then I would tape it up on the property, take a photo of it, forward all the photos of it posted to the planner, I guess it would be in this instance, and then it would be proof put in the file that we had posted the property, and then they would be given the time limit, and then the town would act on it.
Right. So just to clarify, my thought process was just for our existing blight ordinance that we already thought went to print and approved, almost a year plus ago. So it was just for that idea, and to literally look at some of these, if we don't do anything with that Colonel's house, the water is just going to ruin it, just like it did the old post office where we didn't fix a gutter, and we were, having to spend $300,000 to fix and put a new foundation and everything just for water damage. So my thought is, you're right, we're not doing a renovation, but we're fixing some immediate concerns that will self-preserve the building and clean up the, the area around that gated fence to make it not look like it's, why isn't the town doing something to this property? So that was my intent, and it all started with the enforcement of what we already had and putting a line item budget number to it, which was, there's no doubt that we can't fix that roof, or that roof and maybe a couple other ones. For example, the firehouse has got a big hole in it. Those 2 roof repairs will definitely would be a start of efforts. Yeah. So that was my original thought. Back to the Vice Mayor, and then we'll see if anybody else wants.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to remember my question now. Where was that, in Halifax, you said?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe you're not familiar with how they did it. You were doing the enforcement side, right?
Yes, sir.
So were you involved in any of the policy side? Did they use a structural engineer? Did they do an assessment of all the buildings and identify all the structures that are determined to be blighted, things like that beforehand?
So the town staff got together and determined, with the town manager and the mayor having the final say, of what buildings they wanted to concentrate on that year. Now, the calculations of the repairs, I wasn't involved in that. I don't know if it was we had a carpenter on call there that we used for everything. I don't know if they got estimates from him or if it was a guess. But after years of doing it, I'm assuming they had a schedule. I mean, a list of what would cost what. It cost this to tear something down, cost this to build a porch, repair a roof. I wasn't involved in that part of it.
So,
Let me just say before we, the blight ordinance that we have, and I'm sure on the enforcement side of it, Chief, that's what you saw, but you just can't walk out and say, I'm going to go in, start working on this house. I mean, you have to build in the due process that's involved in the ordinance, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to get the attorney involved, because the property owner is not going to just say, oh, yeah, come on in and fix my house. The other thing, and you can't, and I have had some experience with these types of things, you can't just come in and like paint the roof and then put a lien on the property for painting the roof without going through a process. Having said that, it's certainly doable, and I mean, our ordinance, from what I've seen of it, allows us to do that, and having some funding to back that up would be helpful. That's my concern, has been my concern when I look at it, is if we're going to step in and enforce this ordinance, get it through the process, and it has to be a structural engineer that, if we're going to actually condemn the property and take it down, so you have to have that documentation. So I mean, it's not as simple as just going in and fixing things and putting a lien on the property to recover it. I just want to make that clear, that's all.
yeah, no, I get that. And so we don't have a lot of properties, but we have enough. Would it make sense then to do an assessment of each one? Staff to do an assessment of each one, and I would imagine you'd have to have, in some cases, a structural engineer come in and take a look at those properties. So there's some cost. I don't know.
There's your $50,000.
Yeah. Well,
We have done that.
yeah. Well, I know you did it with the, but they paid
Yeah.
for it.
No,
So
Joe Barbeau, our inspector, came in, assessed
Okay.
every one of those buildings, and gave an assessment, so we know
Right.
that it's only worse than what it was
right.
within.
So we have that for that property, and the Blue House, other places, the Firehouse, the folks down on, what is it, 6810 Carolina? Is that 6810, the white building? The one where the structural engineer was like a wet cardboard box? Yes. Yeah, okay. So they paid for that, though. Correct. So, those are kind of like the questions I would have. Would the property owner pay for that assessment, or would we just do it because then there goes your 50 and you're not even doing anything?
It depends on the attitude and the corporate nature of the property owner. I mean, it's hard to determine. If the property owner refuses to do it, and you're going to act under the blight ordinance and act to claim the property as unsafe, inhabitable, and a threat to health, safety, and welfare of the town, then we would have to go in and do it and pay for that assessment. Now, that part of that could be assessed against the property as well, as well as the physical improvements to the property.
But that could be a long time recovery on that.
It could be. I mean,
So basically,
I was going, is that not part of the process, though?
Mhm.
So we issue a letter and say, you have so many days to do this, or we're going to do it. Have we issued those letters?
I issued the letters on the property over here probably a year and a half. When I was here the first time as an interim manager, we issued the letters over there, and
Is there any follow-up to that
I
from the town?
I assume not, because I haven't, I don't think so.
All right. I just want to clarify, the MOU you were talking about a couple meetings ago, that concept, is that finished, or are we still thinking about that?
I got some additional information from Martin on that. That's caused pause with that.
Okay.
So,
Well, maybe we can have that discussion
Yeah.
when we talk about,
yeah,
as John
this might
suggested.
be a special meeting just to do this.
yeah, yeah.
Don't corrupt it with other agenda items,
Mhm.
and come up with a plan of action. And if we do need a line item number, if we can get it in time, good. If not, okay. But I think we need to go forward, and I think Councilman Edwards would be much happier with some lockstep decisions to go and do stuff, right? Yeah, so I would do that.
Again, I know this was done in the past, but being part of the team now, I have the question. Letters were issued to the owners, property owners, but no follow-up from the town? Yes.
I believe that there was follow-up with the town, but that was when it was a transition between two planners, and then I think the planner before me is where it stopped, and then, I think they might have submitted a planner, had some correspondence, but it stopped before I got here.
I just think we have to be careful. If we're going to issue letters, we need to follow up on them. If we don't, they're going to doubt us again. If we send something now, they're going to say they didn't follow through before. So my feeling is if we submit that letter, we need to hold them to the letter of that law and follow up, so.
And they get back to us, depending on their response, then I think it starts getting legal fees involved, and that could have been why it stopped previously. That I'm not sure, so.
Okay, thank you.
So just make clear, I think Joe was undecided. Yeah. John still no, Connor no, Susan yes, Steve, I don't want to speak for you, but yes.
I'm all for putting it to a work session and talking about it. And
And if we can work it out, put a line item in there. I'm
Perfect,
all for that.
yes.
I just don't want to
There's
throw some amount that we have no idea if it's adequate.
There's too much discussion that needs to go on for this line item, and I don't think this is the time nor place to discuss that particular one. I think in a work session would be a better fitting, whoever. I think a work session would be a more fitting time and place to be able to discuss this proposed line item. An ARB or an ARB liaison. Ms. Edwards, and just coming with what maybe what goals you're looking for fiscal year 19 there, and I'm all up for discussion and talking about it and moving on it, but I think the time and place is a work session.
All right, so we don't have Councilman Morris's thought on this, so we don't have the majority to move forward on.
I just think it's rude that Councilman Passanello took up all the time and then he left when other people were
I'll
discussing.
take the microphone there. Yeah, I think I'm going to set a special meeting for that. We'll have the clerk send it out to do just on blight, and probably more sooner than later, so that way we can.
Date that we can put down now that 5 of us here can meet.
Well, of course, we're doing the budget, so the sooner the better. So.
I agree. What I don't want to happen is us to leave this meeting and not be discussed for a week or so. I would
Right.
I know it's important to Councilwoman Edwards, so I want to make sure that it's brought up and discussed in the work session. So if we want to take a look at our calendar
I would just like to say for the record that I'm very disappointed that we spent all this time when Mr. Passanello is on the Finance Committee. A lot of his questions could have been answered previous to this, and when there's things like this that need to be discussed, we've taken up 2 hours already doing things that should have been done previous to this meeting, and now we're not going to have time to discuss things like actual policy things that need to be added into the budget. That's just my personal opinion.
So back to a calendar of next week and suggestions, Councilman Cole?
Tuesday, 17th.
Time?
5 o'clock. Nope.
I cannot make it.
Okay.
I'm only one.
No, when can you make it?
Yeah,
The 18th is ARB, so I can't do
Right.
unless you did it early.
Is that a light ARB agenda?
Should be.
You want to talk about it during the ARB?
Or prior to the ARB?
When is the ARB?
The 18th is Wednesday.
Wednesday? Looks good for everyone, Wednesday?
I have a family obligation at 5 o'clock on Wednesday the 18th. I apologize, but I cannot
No.
do it.
That's okay.
What about the 16th or 19th? That's the Monday.
The 16th, I'm good.
Okay.
Whatever works on the 16th.
We need to be efficient in this meeting.
Yep.
We are just coming up with.
Monday, the April 16th?
April 16th? All right. And the time? 5 is good. All right. And things for staff, we'll see if there's other policies maybe we can dovetail off of or grab, because obviously we don't need to recreate some of this stuff if another town's doing it. Input from Martin using our existing ordinance, and maybe just some suggestions of guesstimates of the top 4 or 5 things that we could resolve.
Before I eat this lunch, move to adjourn.
There you go. Yeah. No discussion. All in favor? Yes. Adjournment by Cole, seconded by Councilman Leak, and all in favor? Unanimous. All right. Thank you. Yeah, very good. You got your camera off?